Here we are.
All right.
Hello there, young Nick.
Hey, how's it going, John?
Outstanding.
Yeah,
How's it going for you?
it's good. It's good. It's been a busy couple of weeks since we last met. I think I
Yeah,
was it. I was we met. We did this on a Friday morning as I was about to
yeah.
embark on a trip to the Oregon coast, mostly Oregon coast, and yeah, then had a birthday and soccer tournament or showcase. I don't know what they call it anymore, but yeah. And
Soccer
then now
thing.
we're back at it. How about you? What did you do these last couple of weeks?
Well, we had a nice trip out to just north of Madison for a high school unofficial reunion. About
Oh,
50 or
oh,
60 of us
wow.
out of the class of 540.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
it's not they have those reunions every 5 years. It's not one of those years, but we had it at a guy's house, and that was marvelous.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about you turning 43 when before the show came on, and
Yeah.
I was at this party with all these people. Everybody's very nice, but everybody's very old, with about two exceptions. But my goodness, the years have flown by. We graduated from high school, and here we are, old.
So wait a minute. In back in, World War II era there. No, I'm just kidding. Um, you had a high school class of 500 people, a graduating class?
Yeah, 540.
Oh my goodness. How many counties were in that school?
Exactly. One. It's the baby boom, my friend. It's the
Oh my
baby boom.
gosh. You know,
Yes.
I went to a pretty decently good sized high school, and I want to say our graduating class was like 350. But, we had, there's over a dozen high schools in my area where I graduated. I went to my nephew's graduation in California, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
a pretty big school. And I want to say they had about 600. So for you, 45 years ago, I'm
Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
yeah,
Um, you know, graduating class size for you was about the same as it is for a lot of places today.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
insane.
It was big,
Yeah.
and so we had that party, and it was super great. And then
Yeah.
the next day was my beloved Mary. It was her birthday.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
So
Cool.
I think it was the same day as you.
Same
The
day as
14th.
me?
It was the
Oh no,
14th.
I'm 21st, so she was
Okay.
14th. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So she was a week ahead. So we went out to eat. We went to a park, sat next to Lake Michigan, which is you can't see the other side of Lake Michigan. It's really nice.
Feels like the
Looks
ocean.
like the ocean.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by the Olympic opening ceremony last night.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
watch it?
I didn't. I didn't get a chance. No, I was doing stuff in the backyard and dinner with the kids, and then we're like, "Oh my gosh, what happened? We were supposed to watch this."
If you can
Um,
watch it, do the
yeah,
art.
I
Well, and
will.
some people were greatly offended by some of the things.
Oh, of course they
Uh,
were.
um, but it was art on the edge,
Yeah.
and then it concluded with Celine Dion. Now, I'm not a Celine Dion fan. I never have been, but because my musical taste is bluesy,
Yeah, yeah.
jazzy, funky, and rock and roll, and a little bit of alt country. Hers is Broadway or something. I don't know, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bit.
oh, oh,
Really?
she knocked my socks off.
Really? I saw some grumblings, just whatever, the news, this, that, or other on social media that she killed it. Yeah.
Oh,
So I definitely will check it out. My
did.
grandmother's a huge Celine Dion fan,
Oh,
so
that's
we
great.
watched it. But yeah. Um,
Standing way up high inside the Eiffel Tower
oh
with
goodness.
the city of Paris at her feet. They showed angles of her, what she was looking at, and she's looking at this vast expanse of urban stuff, and she's
Wow.
about 4 feet from falling off the thing.
Jeez.
and she belts off an Edith Piaf song. She's got the whole world watching. I don't know if you know, but she has a progressive neurological disorder,
Uh-huh.
um, which has caused her a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
And she belted this thing out. I was just, my jaw was on the floor.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I didn't need a lot of convincing to watch or check it out, but I definitely will be
Yeah,
post haste. So
it's really
yeah.
beautiful.
Well, that's cool. I so your heart will go on, huh? Yeah. Um, I
Yes,
always think of that Titanic soundtrack when I think of
right.
Celine Dion too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you know, I feel like the age of streaming media and YouTube, all this, um, that I don't tune in to a lot of live broadcasts. Now I know you watch a lot of sports
Yeah.
in kind of real time, but yeah, since we get all of our video content these days from an app of some sort, even on our TV, I feel like I don't just tune in to whatever the channel surfing is. And that has, and this is one of those times where I feel like it's a detriment because I used to just be able to turn the TV on and just have background during the Olympics when I was, younger, and I would catch everything. And sometimes you're like, oh, now they're just replaying this segment again. Okay, I'm going to tune this out. But then in between those segments, you'd be like, oh, here's a live thing. And so I feel like I feel like it's harder to know when and what is going to happen because of the whole streaming platforms. And it's like, is it on this app? Is it in this? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Exactly. I was going to turn it on and see what's showing. I
yeah.
want to. I know the basketball team plays on Sunday, and I want to watch that
Yeah. Yeah.
because the world has caught up with the USA, so it's more
Oh my
complicated.
gosh. I think I saw some statistic where the US, so the dream team back in the 90s, 92
Yeah.
or whatever it was, they played not like of all the other countries they played, there was 9 NBA players on the other countries' teams. And I read something where this year the USA men's team is going to be playing over 90 professional NBA players on all the other teams now. So I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Um, 30 years, and now all of a sudden, every team's got superstars on it, even if they're, you know, from Africa, from
Right.
France,
Yeah.
from
Yeah. Yeah.
Ukraine, whatever it may be.
Serbia.
Yeah, yeah. So that's cool. I'm excited.
Me too.
Um, and of course, the women's has got a lot of buzz now too.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, that's exciting too.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
I've
look
always
forward to it.
enjoyed the gymnast. I mean,
Oh
all
yeah.
those things aside, here's something I thought was cool, and I gotta see this, and then we'll get into the meat of today because we can't talk about the Olympics all day. Um, but I think I saw something that there is now breakdancing. There's an
Oh, I
Olympic
saw they had an
Olympic
ad.
sport breakdancing. Yeah.
Yeah, they had an ad last night for the new sports. One of them is like rock climbing,
Oh,
but it's on an indoor.
a wall.
It's a fake rock
Yeah, yeah,
situation.
climbing wall, huh? Yeah,
Yeah, and then they had break dancing and other things. Yeah,
yeah.
I won't watch that.
No, I won't. But I mean, it fascinates me that that's an Olympic sport. You know,
Right.
I mean, I'm just waiting for them to have cornhole. Um,
Exactly.
I mean,
You
it's
have
already
to
got
do
it. It's on ESPN.
you have to do it after five beers though,
Yeah, right.
and one cigar. Then you do the cornhole throw.
Yeah, that's right. That's cool though.
All right.
Um,
Well, shall we talk about our subject?
yeah, that's right. So we took a little detour for a bit in honor of your retirement and lessons learned. I know you're well, a shameless plug. You're doing some promotion work on the garden.
I
Um,
was going to show a copy of it, but I haven't received it yet
oh
in the
well,
mail.
next time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My book, The Garden of Healing book
Yeah,
workbook, is out.
that's so cool. And I,
Yeah,
I feel so honored and privileged for us to have kind of talked about and sort
yeah,
of brainstormed and just, you know, I feel like it's come to a bit of life through this platform, and then
yeah,
now it's you've taken it to the next level, and that's awesome.
yeah.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah,
That's
The
so
Garden
cool.
of Healing. For those who don't know, it's a workbook I wrote on um, grieving. The three seeds of it are uh, triage, and then next part is ceremonial observance and honoring, and then meditative self healing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
tried
so cool.
tried to put a little
Um,
in there.
Trying to see. So is it's on Amazon now, right? Or
Yes,
no? It is.
it is
Okay.
supposed to come out in other venues as well, like Barnes and Noble, very soon. I don't know when that will be.
Because I see and I look on Amazon, I see the Heart Like a Bonfire, but when I look up John R. Hughes author in Amazon, I don't see that workbook yet. So,
Maybe just put in John Hughes.
oh, good point. Um, let's see. Mm,
That's strange. It comes up for me. Comes up for other people too because they've made. Oh, I forgot. I told them to block Nick Davis.
okay, so Lucy Hinton is listed on here.
She's the painter. She's
Ah,
the
that's right. I
cover
oh,
illustrator.
okay. Here, hold on. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Have you
Here,
seen the cover before?
here we go. Here we go. This is good. Share screen. We're gonna do this
Oh,
here.
you're gonna put it up for
There we
people to see?
go.
Oh, look at you! You are a techno wizard.
All right. Show on stream. Here we go. And then we're gonna switch this over to this view. Maybe.
Yeah,
Oh, let's see here.
isn't that a beautiful cover? Nick Davis, can you hear me?
I'm being
There you are.
there's me.
Can you hear me?
There's you. Let's
Split
see.
screens. What happened when you went to the book and then it came back and it wasn't functioning? Can you hear me, Nick?
I can hear you just fine. Let's see.
There you go. I just have to be Nick Davis for the rest of
Ah,
the show.
there we go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you if you can hear me.
All right, we're good. Sorry about that. Well,
No
that's
problem.
weird. So anyway, so I
People
guess when
got
I
to see.
switched back to from screen sharing that,
Yeah,
um, we lost it. So
people
we'll
got to see it.
we'll fine tune that later on, huh? Okay. All right. So we'll drop that link in the chat.
Yeah,
And
cool.
people can check it out on their own there. So cool. All right. Well, I think we're all up to speed, up to date.
Yeah. And so now we're going to talk about the Metacrisis. Now, I introduced this 2 episodes ago, or there's one episode between today and the last time I introduced this. I'm going to give a brief recap. It's, you could call it what floats downstream of our many different crises that we all are experiencing. And I mentioned several aspects of, oh, by the way, I'm going to read something. It describes the metacrisis pretty well. But I mentioned several aspects of the crisis that we all are facing in humanity, and
Uh-huh.
my theory is that something, a basic disorientation to life is happening downstream of all of this that creates it, that exacerbates it.
Okay.
Um, and so I'm pulling this up. I wrote a little thought about Kamala Harris
Uh-huh.
and her sudden arrival on the presidential election scene.
Right.
And where are you, John Hughes? Maybe I can't get it. Um, anyway, I might not be able to get it. I said um, the revolution that deals with the fundamentals of reality is going to have to happen from us. The president can only do so much, whoever it is, you know,
Right.
um, and president can do, you know, extend the reach of Obamacare,
Mm-hmm.
keep the economy roaring, do some things for the environment, do some, you know, Supreme Court justices,
Right.
NATO alliance, but the fundamentals of these things, so much of that comes from us.
Yeah.
And the problems that we face, the meta crisis has manifestations in massive inequality. We've got the worst economic inequality since the 1920s, which, you know, at that time that led to the stock market crash and the Great Depression.
Yeah.
We're in that sort of unhealthy atmosphere again.
Right.
It's gotten better in the Biden administration, but we still, you know, are in danger. We're in the danger zone, especially if Trump gets reelected. Um, there is corruption, and I point mainly to dark money. You know, the power of people hidden behind the screens. You know, out of view to
Mm-hmm.
control Congress, the Senate, even the presidency, for banks and others to do a massive distortion of what politics might try to do. I mean, here in Wisconsin, we've got a Senator Ron Johnson who um, flew to Moscow on the 4th of July a few years ago, maybe
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, with a couple
Yeah.
other senators, and spent the 4th of July with Putin.
Right.
Came back and has been basically anti-American ever since. I don't know what he was said there, but it's just dark. So
Yeah.
corruption, wealth inequality. Um, we have mental health issues that give rise to not only suicide and gun violence, which are horrific in and of themselves,
Right.
but also just tens of millions of people suffering.
Yeah.
You know, we have social media manipulation. to the extent that we've got 80 million people voting for a sociopath twice,
Yeah.
and they want to vote for him again. I don't know what the numbers are. Um, and environmental degradation, which has, climate change is like 12% of what the dangers are. It's not everything. There's much more. Big one is peak oil, which is, we're running out of the easily obtained oil, and we're going
Right.
to get into more and more expensive to obtain oil, and so on. I could think, but
Yeah.
today we're going to talk about how to address it. We're
Okay.
21 minutes in. Now we're finally getting to how to. I don't have a solution. How could I? If I had a solution, I'd be a gazillionaire, or maybe
Right.
I'd be, or maybe I'd be burned
Or
at the
you be
stake.
assassinated.
Right, burned at the stake. Right. Um, but how to navigate it.
Yeah.
Um, and I mentioned at the very end last time the four kind of basic orientations for personal and group, and by group I mean relatively small groups, but scattered all over the country. Um, Goals for development, goals for maturation.
Hmm.
Remember that, Nick?
Yeah. Goals for maturation. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are
Oh boy.
wake up,
That's
grow
right.
up, clean up, and show up. Before I get into those, though, I thought of something this morning. Um, on a lighter scale, it's really important as we look at this meta crisis and the serious, potentially extinction event difficulties that we're in. We could be all killed by AI. AI is a few million times smarter than us and has no morals. Um, that's a possibility. All these different climate change dangers is a possible extinction event. But I say, in the face of that, we need to um, maintain a light. Don't be doom and gloom.
Right.
Don't be dour. Don't be um, filled with uh, pessimism. We have
Despair.
we have to we have to, in the face of these things, we have to maintain community and humor and celebration as a subversive act.
Right.
You know, humor, celebration. The ceremony of the Olympics last night, is a kind of ceremony. If we had that on a regular basis for the human race's survival, it would be a powerful thing.
Hmm.
Um, and also, another thing that we need to do, so keep a light, keep a faith and humor and humility. That's a line from a Joni Mitchell song. Faith and humor and humility will lighten a heavy load.
I like
I
that.
just, I love that. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't have to be faith in a deity. It can be faith in the power of the human race, our collective will, that we can rise up to these challenges collectively. We can suss out what we need to do and how we need to change. Another thing is simply for 500 million of us to make a commitment. Yes, we like to be entertained. I do. I sit and watch sports. I sit and watch movies. I like to listen to music. We all do. But that we not be distracted while being entertained from the task at hand. I
Hmm.
think I think of a magician who they do sleight of hand. They've got the crowd's eyes here looking at what they're doing, and over here they're doing the trick.
Oh,
They get your eyes.
misdirection. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the word. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of misdirection in the oligarchy, in the powers that be, and the people who are truly powerful, who truly don't care about humanity's survival.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to look the other way. Hey, everybody, look. Yes, it's true. Climate is the hottest year on record for the third year in a row. But Kim Kardashian, check out her butt.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and get us all thinking this way all the time. Oh, don't be a sourpuss talking about climate. We've got celebrities that are talking about how to lose weight. So that's a much more interesting thing.
Yeah.
We have to commit ourselves to not being distracted by that. Keep our eyes on the prize of what it is with a light heart, um, and with a wise heart, and with a celebration heart. Together, keep our eyes on the Metacrisis.
Mm-hmm.
Not dour, but persistent
Yeah.
at scale. There has to be a lot of us.
Right.
So those are my intro. And now I want to talk about these four things.
Okay.
Today we're going to go in depth into one or two of them, depending on how the clock goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to introduce them all.
Okay.
Wake up, grow up, clean up, and show up.
Okay.
Wake up is a spiritual thing and a wisdom thing, if you don't like the word spiritual.
Uh-huh.
It's basic orientation. I heard a great, and I've got it written down here, during my research this week, trying to get intelligent presentation together. I listened to a guy named Dustin DePerna talking about waking up, and he described it this way: it is the move beyond the exclusive identification with a skin encapsulated ego into an emergent interconnectedness uh, with a base of wholeness. It's not a state, but a stage. It's trainable, and it is persistent experience. I'll say that again so people can absorb it. It is a move beyond the exclusive identification with skin encapsulated ego. Just think about, I'm John. Oh, you've written it down here. Wake up, grow up, show up, clean up. Lovely. A move beyond the exclusive identification with the skin encapsulated ego into an emergent interconnectedness uh, with a base of wholeness. So that sounds kind of complicated. Does it sound kind of complicated, Nick?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Skin encapsulated ego. Um, just think about the way that you exist in this life.
Mm.
I am Nick Davis. I'm
Right.
in this skin. This is me. I
Mm-hmm.
am John Hughes. I'm in this skin. This is me. This is my identification.
Right.
I went to such and such a school.
Mm-hmm.
I was trained by these teachers. I have this family history, all of which is true as a relative reality, but not a absolute one. I am a. Then you can describe your profession, your spouse, your kids, what city you live in, etc. And the feeling tone of that, ultimately, if you look into it, is I have to struggle against the outside world in order to survive out here. But ultimately, I will fail in the sense of dying. And I'm in competition solely with other people, not necessarily with your wife or your kids
Right.
or your best friends, but out here in this world. And there is a relative truth to that. I
Yeah.
paid my bill this morning on my credit card, thinking of this presentation. I went down to Kentucky a couple weeks ago. I told you
Oh
about that,
yeah. Hmm.
and I rang up some a restaurant bill and a couple hotel nights.
Yeah.
Paid that off today. Nobody else is going to do that for me.
Right.
There is a element of accountability and individuality.
Yeah.
I'm the only person that's going to drive my car to the
Right.
grocery store, right? Um, so but it says moving beyond an exclusive identification
Hmm.
with that into an emergent interconnectedness. So you and I are talking. After we get off, um, you go upstairs, downstairs, and you're with your family. There is a mutually dependent co-arising. I'll say that again for people to absorb, but there is more than just Nick.
Right.
There's more than just me. We are in a, um, like it says, an emergent interconnectedness, which is the absolute reality of who we are.
Yeah.
We are trained by our culture and our society to see the skin encapsulated ego as the ultimate reality,
Hmm.
as and the emergent and interconnectedness as a nice thing when you can get it, but it's a relative reality. And we're
Right.
missing out on the fact that the truth of us is we are all in this together, radically, seamlessly interwoven with one another. And competition does exist. There are bad people out here to try to undo us.
Right.
But the more we see our interconnected with one another, our interconnectedness with one another, the more we wake up. And we're not only interconnected with other people, but with all manifestation of life, with pets, with animals, with the outside world, with nature. I was out walking this week thinking about this on two occasions. Um, I was in an ice age trail near here. I was also in a nature preserve, and just pausing and thinking to myself, I am interconnected with all that I'm in, all that I'm within. Uh, Everything that I'm seeing, this meadow, this tree, I am somehow impacting it, and it is impacting me. We do not just exist isolated, but we exist as part of an interwoven whole. Does that make any sense, Nick?
Yeah. It's pretty,
You're frozen. You're frozen on my camera, or else you're there. You are.
it's funny. A little bit on my end too.
Oh yeah. So
And
that's kind of this kind of an esoteric thing, but we can work our way into that a little bit more over time. It's kind of hard for some people to understand, but uh, we're seamlessly connected with things, and we're um, deluded into thinking that we're not. Are you there? Yeah,
Yeah,
you're there.
I'm
Okay.
here. Yeah, I'm showing a little bit of a connection issue on my end. Yours looks good though. Are you able to hear me though?
I can.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. Gosh, I mean, there's so much to
Yeah.
kind of unpack there with that.
For
Um,
decades.
yeah, right. And I mean, and for those, I mean, what I'm tracking here is kind of this idea of, you know, really a lot of conditioning that
Yeah.
is focused. Like we've taken in this idea, and I know it's very, Freudian, to say the least, um, of the kind of the id and the ego,
Yes.
and I feel like it's almost been, 50, 60 plus years of really a lot of human rights efforts, while at the same time, as you mentioned, this misdirection of no, 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 don't think about this interconnectedness, don't think about this idea of the id, of your human, your spirituality, your essence, your soul, but worry more about this ego or the super ego, if we want to use those Freudian terms, right? And it's as though there's a full campaign against people working on that interconnectedness of their root core soulful connections, and the interconnectedness of things. I feel like there's real conscious efforts, whether it be by, industries or governments, or whatever the case may be, to really just kind of shred or get people not looking at that human id interconnectedness part, and more on the ego superego stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
And we get to the point where we uh, automatically cooperate with it and
Right.
agree with it. So
Yeah.
when I sit down and meditate for an hour, most days, um, I sit down there, and the first 35 to 40 minutes, my mind is automatically working according to the skin encapsulated ego.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about things I have to do, things I want, ambitions, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
35 to 40 minutes each day it takes me to have that calm down, to quell the fires, and to finally get to calm breathing and opening
Yeah.
to the experience of being interwoven with everything in a very peaceful way. It takes me that long every single day. And I think we're all there. I think my experience isn't unique.
Well, and I think it's so. I mean, we can take that, and we can expand on it to, well, let's just take the mental health crisis. When it
Mm,
takes that long for somebody who has honed these skills, who is consciously aware and enlightened through your path, that specializes in these things, imagine for those who do not, how they may never be able to find their way to such uh, a place of peace, because they can't see the way there. Um, and so then
very.
you wonder why people are depressed, why people have so much anxiety. Um, and it's, I mean, years and years, decades of conditioning that's basically saying, no, don't think about those things, don't focus on those things. Um, and if you are going to focus on them, be really, really selfish about it. And I hate to say that, but like, there's this movement where people, I feel like, are becoming more self aware, and they don't realize that self aware does not mean selfishness.
That's right. They need to
Because,
have somebody frame it in language that they can use.
yeah, Because I see a lot of, I mean, people sort of, I don't want to say weaponizing these mental health things like self care, self awareness. Um, but if you're using it as a armor or uh, an offensive measure, then you're kind of missing the point.
I totally
It's
get it.
more, yeah. It's like, oh, I don't need to deal with this because this is bad for this is this is my boundary. This is this. And it's like, well, you're just using those terms to be selfish. So I think that people are sort of going the other direction with some of it too.
That's real. That's very astute.
Yeah, and then
Very
it
astute.
just kind of feeds entitlement too. So
And oh yes,
yeah,
and you know we've you got to do grow up, show up, and clean up. If all you do is wake up, you could wind up being a beast,
yeah,
as has happened. As has happened with spiritual um, teachers who do the one, or they do the grow up, or they do the show up, or the clean up, and they don't do the others. So we'll move on to the next one. I know that wake up's a little esoteric and hard to understand, because even as I was working this week trying to put this presentation together, I had a hard time coming up to. Here's a great. I heard this the other day, and I was like, perfect for the show. Native American tradition. Um, I heard children ask their parents, "What's that? What's that?" And they point to something.
hmm
And the parents will say, "That is one spirit showing itself as a tree."
ah,
That's a really, really good way of describing this. That is one spirit manifesting as a coyote.
hmm
That is one spirit manifesting as Nick Davis or John
yeah,
Hughes. I really like that as part of waking up, to
hmm
view it that way.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad I remembered that. I didn't
Yeah.
write it down. I was spending this week working on this, and I was like, how do I describe this clearly and cleanly?
hmm
That's the best one. All right. So number two, grow up is um, there's a whole, and we'll get into this next time when we're talking about growing up. I think next time what we'll do is we'll talk about wake up and do some meditations on it.
Okay.
And then the following time we'll do grow up, and then clean up, and then show up. So this will be four things, and this is the introduction. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Grow up is um, it takes us straight to developmental psychology. Did you
Mm.
study Jean Piaget and Carol Gilligan and Eric Erickson when you were in college?
Um, Most of those sound familiar, but as far as remembering teaching specifically, I think Eric Erickson is the most common that I recall.
Yeah,
And that's from the nursing, you know, prerequisite courses and stuff.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, but it's we all go through phases. There's an infant to an infant. Us, we, the we space is me and mom.
hmm
As you expand, it grows a little bit to the family.
Yeah.
As you continue to expand, you'd be able to take other people's perspectives a little bit more. Your ethical reasoning evolves. You're starting out thinking, um, good is what gets me a reward, bad is what gets me punished. You start to think a little bit more about empathy for other people's experience, and you expand on who is us, we. It's the neighborhood. It's we fellow Republicans or we fellow Democrat. It's people that live in the state of Washington or Oregon or Wisconsin.
Hmm.
It's us Packers fans, us Oakland A's fans.
Yeah.
Um, it's Americans. I was listening to a radio show and they said, uh, here in Milwaukee, and they said, not only was this a problem, but there were Wisconsin people involved in it. It was like, oh, well, that really to them, that made it more of a problem than if it was just humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you evolve in terms of who we is until eventually you're taking on the entire human race and animals
Right.
as we, you know,
Yeah.
that's we. So when you're watching the Olympics, yeah, I'm cheering for the United States because that's my country, but it's also just taking in the spectacle of humanity and then all of its uh, multiple beauty,
Right.
and all of its striving for excellence, which is really beautiful. Um, and so waking up is seeing yourself more clearly for who you are as a manifestation of one spirit. But growing up and also noticing and experiencing that you're interwoven with everybody.
Hmm.
But growing up, there's many different aspects, and there's 1,000 different ways to cut the cheese here. But I'll go with this one thing, which is the ability and the desire to take perspectives of other people who are not you and who are different from you.
Mm.
So, you know, the ability to wonder what's their experience. We all, our meaning making, our values, our the way that we filter data is embedded in our assumptions that we were raised with, right?
Right.
And in the assumptions that are built into our language. Um, but when you grow up fully, nobody's grown up fully. I mean, you hopefully you'll still be growing when you're 90, but you're thinking, what is their perspective? And I really want to know.
Right.
I'm hungry to know. What's their experience? How are they filtering reality? We're interwoven with each other in an absolute sense, but in a relative sense, we're pretty different. So how
Yeah.
does that? What's that like? What's it like to be them? That's a grown up.
Right.
There's many different ways that it can be expressed, but that's a good one for us
Mm.
to hold on to. Now I'm going to get through cleanup and show up here in the next 12 minutes. Um, Cleanup is a psychological thing. You mentioned Freud earlier, um,
Hmm.
but it's more Carl Jung, who was a disciple of Freud and then went off on his different way,
Right.
who talks about shadow. Shadow is um, uh, we all have aspects of ourselves which we disown. So um, you're raised in a certain house that says you're not allowed to be proud of yourself. You've got to be humble.
Mm.
Um, you lack the capacity because you're one of us. You lack the capacity to have self-esteem,
Hmm.
or you shouldn't be greedy. And the way that they describe greed is wanting to meet your needs.
Right.
Or you want a present for Christmas or a second present for Christmas. And there's shaming involved.
Mm.
Or it's not so much your family necessarily, but your culture that you're raised in. I think in this culture now, unfortunately, tragically, there's a lot of sort of we call it anti-intellectualism, but anti-thoughtfulness. I
Hmm.
heard a guy on the radio a couple months ago. My jaw dropped open. He was a former Green Bay Packer, and he says, "I don't read. Who reads?" I was like, "Oh my God, I'll never listen to this radio station again." He was the same guy that boasted a couple of weeks earlier that he was wearing a thong. He's like a 50-year-old man.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I was like, God. His name is Mark Chamora. You can look him up.
Mark
Uh,
Tremore, huh?
yeah, he was a linebacker. Tight end. Tight end. That's funny. I didn't think of that. Yeah. Mark Chamora. He played with Brett Favre.
Yeah.
But so you could grow up and you could be, uh, oh, I would never want to be thoughtful. That's not me. So all these things that you're raised
Yeah.
to disown are drives that don't go away.
Uh huh.
They go into the basement. And you say to yourself, I'm not that. It could be horny,
Right.
erotic, erotic desire. Oh, I would never have erotic desire. Um, they're only for this person. Um, and it all goes into the basement, but it doesn't go away. And
Mm.
what happens is, since you've disowned it and it's still there, you project it onto other people.
Ah.
That person's that way. Now they might be actually. You know,
Mhm.
so you would want to always be humble, and you've got self-esteem, legitimate self-esteem, but you don't want to own it. So you're like
Interesting.
looking around, and there's somebody that triggers you into thinking, well, that person is truly arrogant.
Yeah.
They really suck because they're so arrogant. Or there's also that's a shadow that you're projecting.
Hmm.
That which you've disowned, you're giving somebody else the blame for. There's also the other thing, which is um, golden shadow. I don't know how else to phrase it. Your strengths that you've disowned. You're very, very talented, but your family says you can't be. So you say, "Oh, Joe Schmo, yeah, that's really a talented person." You give them the credit for your talent.
Mm.
You project it. So the way that this manifests is, I mean, I was learning about shadow in the '80s, and Ronald Reagan. I hate to be always political, but he was talking about the evil empire, Russia, and them. I'm not saying that Russia's great or anything, but
Yeah.
he was projecting negative traits that the United States might have. I'm not bashing the United States, but nothing is perfect.
Right.
Onto another country,
Yeah.
and then it can also be in a community that has a effort to be environmentalist, and they've joined together and they're meeting once a month and they're practicing. They're doing cleanup of the riverbank, and they're what's that, permacultural practices and all that kind of stuff. But they're just driven by gossip and uh, projections. You
Right.
know, arguing and pettiness and stuff.
Hmm.
And they're like, we have such high aspirations for ourselves. I'm doing a little bit of growing up. We're doing a little bit of waking up. How come we still arguing?
Right.
The story of the baby boomers. I'm a little on the young side of that, but 1969 Woodstock, they were all about massively, we're going to create a better world, a peaceful world, an environmentally organic world.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen at all. Why didn't it happen? I think a big part of it is nobody owned their shadow.
Yeah.
Nobody owned their shadow. There's practices for doing that, and they you have to do this. You have to do all four practices continually. Not every minute, but I mean, like as an ongoing thing. The shadow work is fun. I find it to be fun because I get amused by myself. But I usually do my shadow work when I'm driving. Um, I think I think about who. Oh, it came up in my book, Nick. You know my book better than most people. Where I'm driving to work and I go, I think of myself as this, but I'm actually this.
Right. Yes,
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. But as you're driving, you think about who really yanks my chain, who
Yeah.
really pisses me off,
Right.
and because there's always somebody, um, and then you think to yourself, um, they probably they're not off the hook. They probably do have some negative traits, but that's probably my me projecting my shadow onto them.
Yeah.
This probably reveals something about me that's the person that yanks my chain as opposed to someone else.
Yeah. And I think so when it comes to that, one of the things I notice about this type of work is that when anybody else tries to point it out, like, oh, that shows more about you than it does anything or whatever, who you're, nobody likes to hear that.
Mhm.
So it's definitely it's self, it's your own work. Even like other people can point it out, can call it out, whatever, but it won't work if that's how you initiate it. You have to do it yourself. Um, some things that come to mind as we're talking about cleanup and shadow and the basement. Um, implicit association, implicit bias, those things that we don't really recognize. And of course, what you kind of talked about with the driving situation, uh, I do that all the time. And it's being able to laugh at your own hypocrisy. Um,
Yes, that's well
and
said.
yeah, and you just have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so worked up over this, but what a hypocrite. Because I'm getting worked up and frustrated over somebody else, but pot kettle black, right? Um, yeah. So there's a lot
I
of
was
that.
in I was in Jungian depth psychology therapy for 2 years, and I came into it and I said I want to find out what my shadow is and do shadow work. He said, "Okay, good." And after we'd been talking for about a month, he says, "Well, I know what your shadow is," and he explained it to me. I was like,
Mhm.
No, that's not it.
Yeah, you're like, that's not my shadow. No, 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 that's
I
not me.
want it to be something else
Yeah,
because I hated it.
yeah.
I hated it. I wanted it to be something else. It was really great. It was really great. And now I have a sense of humor about who I have been in my shadow life.
I think for anybody who
And
wants, and we'll talk, I guess we'll go into this more when we get into this specifically, a whole episode on it. But I'm excited to explore this personally and with you discussion wise because that's a that's a very vulnerable thing in my opinion to
oh,
and I think about like I can kind of think of my shadow right now um and to face that down seems really like I want to avoid it already just thinking about it.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah, well, welcome to the human race. We're all in this together.
yeah.
Everybody has a shadow, and every institution has a shadow, and every project. Like, I think of this because I've spent so much time reading Carl Jung and Jungian type people. I think of this a lot when I hear Amnesty International or Mercy Corps or a lovely organization that's out there trying to change the world. I think to myself, they have a shadow. They do,
Hmm.
they do, they do. All the people there have a shadow. They have unintended consequences to what they're working on. And
Yeah.
that's not to give up on their mission, but it's just something it's really wise to know about. So wake up, grow up, clean up. And I can tell you stories about the shadow running amok in so-called progressive spiritual groups,
Mm,
like Zen uh, and Tibetan and yoga world, trying to change the world for the better through quote unquote spirituality. That they
mm,
haven't done their shadow work, and it's just they're nowhere. I mean, it's just sabotages them.
yeah.
So
Puts you a bit out of touch with the reality that most people experience if you're not if you come from places of ideals and
yes,
yeah, altruism. Yeah.
yeah, yes. So, an important thing to say is all four of these things tetra arise. That's a word meaning that they are coming uh, into reality all the time from all four um, levels and are entangled. Either you're growing in all four or you're manifesting a lack of growth. And when you've got all four going at the same time, you can really be a power in the world for betterment.
Hmm.
So the fourth one is show up. And that can just be as simple as after this thing is over, um, going and being with your family and being present with them rather than having your mind wandering while you're with them.
Hmm.
That's showing up. It can be um, showing up can mean volunteering somewhere. It can mean when you go to work and you see your colleagues, truly don't have them be your furniture. You know, it's so easy. I can say this as an experience. I show up and I've got work to do, so I've got the nurse and the social worker and the doctor are there, and I say hello to be nice, but I want to get on to what I'm doing. Right?
Yeah.
They can be almost a hurdle. Um, but showing up is pausing and really realizing they woke up in their bed this morning and got out of bed, put their feet on the floor, shaved, brushed teeth, put on their clothes, got in their car, had breakfast, drove here, and here we all are together doing this task. Noticing it, and that's showing up for them. How are
Hmm.
you today? You know,
Yeah.
um, showing up is multifaceted, but um, if you have woke up, not woke like the contemporary culture uses it, but if you have awakened to being seamlessly interwoven with all life in an absolute way, although there's uh, relative differentiation, and if you have grown up to the sense that you are truly, consistently curious about developing empathy with everybody, what's it like to be the janitor here?
Hmm.
What's your perspective? What do you see? If you've got your shadow work that you're doing regularly so that you see yourself with a true, authentic humility as a person who is flawed, just like everybody else is flawed, and that you have unintended consequences for your existence, and you show up with curiosity and commitment. I love the word loyalty lately. Loyalty to uh, a regenerative vision for the earth. You know, I'm loyal to the state of Wisconsin. I really am. I'm committed to it, and it's not just the political, uh, geological, or not geological, political boundaries. You know, so I'm not loyal to Iowa or Minnesota, but I'm loyal to this set of plant life, this set of animal life, this climate, loyal. I show up for this, what they call bioregion that Wisconsin's part of,
Mm.
um, and to gardening and um, contributing. So, in the midst of the go back to Metacrisis, like I said at the beginning, I don't have a solution. How could I? But if we come to things with humor and celebration and ceremony and a lightness of touch, faith and humor and humility lighten the heavy load. And if we don't allow ourselves to get too distracted and dissociated by all of the things that are going on in the world, in the media, basically,
Yeah.
entertainment world, and all of the flush of ideas and perspectives that are out there. And we do these four things, which we'll go into each one. We can truly be an effective person and part of an effective community in the world. Is my in the meta crisis. If we had 500 million of us, I know it's a high thing, but if we had 500 million of us doing all four things,
Yeah.
we would. I think that we would actually regenerate much of the world. That's my thought.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nick?
No, I a lot of that resonates. I really do. And when I think about my final thoughts as we prepare for our next episode, digging going into each of these a little more in depth. But when I think of the show up, my own personal practice, or what that means to me, um, is this internal crisis of living with intention and integrity. Um, and I mean, they can go into the other principles, and I was discussing or bringing up the idea of aging with integrity as well,
Oh,
which is you do a lot of work with folks at the end of life with these things too. But yeah, I think that it's a very holistic idea, and this to me it just means being intentional in your everyday life and actions. And you can think about what cultivates this. You're wakening up, you're growing up, you're cleaning up. Okay, well, I've done those things, but what's the application to practice, like to my daily life, to moment, and that is the show up. So
right.
yeah.
And your application, I'm not going to say what it is because I have no clue, but it might be to be a great nurse and
Yeah.
husband and
Yeah.
daddy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Very good.
cool. Well, I'm excited. We'll continue this discussion on the Meta Crisis, and but more importantly, not answers, but ways of holistic living with this in mind. And maybe we'll reach 500 million people one day.
You never can tell. We had three watching earlier, so
Yeah,
it's a start.
it's a start for sure. Excellent. Well, as always, John, I appreciate your time and your insights, your wisdom, and this journey with you. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been beautiful. Good conversation today, Nick. I always appreciate you much.
And you as well. And anybody that tuned in or watches after the fact, uh, check out John's new workbook, The Garden of Healing. That's on Amazon. I put the link in the chat discussion there in the comments. So if anybody wants to check it out, they can. And we will see you next time in a couple weeks. Thank you all.
Peace out.
Peace.